But to answer your question, yes, let's let him just join when he's done. Like you'll be jumping on board. Yes,
we're live.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sergio. We'll make it work. No pressure. Oh, he froze.
He looks good. We can go. With this. How it is. How he is frozen.
Really? I hope those recordings are going to be. And we're live again.
Yep. Yeah, maybe just to give a bit of background, although I wouldn't be able to make the job of moderator as well as Sergio will be. Yeah, to give a bit of background to the audience that might be there already. We've wanted to do this launch the cybersecurity series. It was I have to thank Aubin for that. Some weeks ago, he had the idea to do that, and we just went along and said, yeah, great idea. Let's gather some people, exchange ideas, and so you'll be hearing the results today with our first talk in the context of the LATAM 3 series, which have been taking place during the last weeks. Oh, we're having Andres also. Welcome, Andres. And Sergio might be coming back in a minute. In any case, huge thanks to everyone here joining today. Sabrina, Dennis, Andres, who just joined, Sergio, who's still a bit struggling, but I'm sure, come on, let's not give up. We'll be joining. Thanks to Aubin for organizing, and many thanks to Emma, who's there also, and to all the other staff at BGS for organizing. I wouldn't know how to get topic started, such as cybersecurity. It's just so vast, so huge. Andres, you're just fresh in the call. Would you like to give us your idea of cybersecurity?
Well, thanks very much, William. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I want to thank Sergio. He's an old colleague and friend. Not that he's so old, but we have met 15 years ago around these digital and regulatory challenges, and in academic experiences, and then in different affiliations where we have been discussing even international treaties together when he was the representative of the government of Brazil. So I wouldn't have missed this for the world. Sorry for coming a little bit late. I was jumping from another ministerial call regarding cybersecurity. I'm now a consultant in this matter for countries and international organizations in the region, in the Latin American region. Where my understanding on this topic is quite, it has been changing or evolving in the last years. This topic has been discussed a lot, and for public policies has been less approached by the governments or by the corporation. Even if we have, for example, Brazil has launched a very recent cybersecurity strategy, like a couple of weeks ago. Even if countries are developing in paper public policies or cooperation or initiatives, this is a matter that has been less in our agendas, and it's even more important in these countries to address these issues, specifically because more and more the key databases or the key social interactions or even interactions with the government or public interest interactions are mediated by technology, are the process of digitalization of the government functions are more and more increasing in the region, well, globally, but maybe a little bit behind in the region. And there is a very the level of protection or our awareness, even of the need of protection for those data, for those information, has been at least at the moment. I wouldn't say that there is an awareness about that. Even we have countries that have had cybercrime legislation or cooperation for 10 or 15 years now, Argentina, Brazil, but we don't have a keen understanding of what do we need to do to protect our assets, not only data protection for the citizens, but digital assets for the governments or for private companies that are developing a function, a key strategic function for a society. And we are having more and more cyber attacks to key databases in the region. In Brazil, in Argentina, we are having problems with national immigration system, with private companies that are that have thousands of hundreds of citizens' data, not only identity data, but credit card information or other key sensible information. And so this is a matter that I believe this discussion could be quite useful to raise awareness, to increase awareness of the common problem that we have. I can only cover a little bit of my experience in Latin America. That's the only thing I can contribute. But I believe this is something that there is a lot to do yet, and we are just starting. Thanks, William.
Thank you, Andres. I think we'll give another try to Sergio. He's back on connection. Can you hear us, Sergio?
Can hear you. Not sure you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, crystal clear. Actually, this is good.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so
fantastic.
sorry. This things happen all the time. I'm at a hotel. I just left the room and now my room is locked, but at least I have connection outside. That was nice to hear from Andres. I'm not sure everyone introduced yourselves.
We haven't done that yet. Yes, please.
You haven't. So okay. So Andres, it's nice to hear from you. Andres is a nice friend from many years. He's been not only a colleague but also a leader in the region. And I'm very glad to have my colleague Sabrina as well, Brazilian. She's living in Lisbon, a PhD in the area. She's also a leader, a research leader with the Interagency, which is a nice group who's doing a lot of work in international relations in the tech side. A group that is all led by women. This is so incredible, and it's a very nice opportunity. We wanted to also to host Daniele, her colleague, but she's now taking care of her health.
Sergio is
Thank you,
gone again.
Sergio, for the introduction. He was explaining that Daniele Aires, Professor Daniele Aires, was supposed to be in my place, but she is with COVID right now, so she's taking care of her health. So maybe we could go further if what William thinks, and then Danny and Andres can be presented, and William also.
Yes. Sergio, are you back?
Yes, take a lead. My connection's terrible. I'm not sure, Willem. Just take the lead and introduce everyone. My connection's terrible, and this is more important.
Maybe just leave your video off.
Really?
Now it's perfect.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just turned the
it's
video
fine.
off, and
Yeah.
this is my wife also in the call. So, but anyway, but we have Willem, who is actually the one who came up with the idea of launching an initiative under the Berkeley Global Society on cybersecurity. Although we're having those issues around right now, but Willem has a very clear vision on what the IT security matters are. He holds an LLM from Berkeley and is also in the infrastructure business right now in Germany, although French, living in Germany. And we have Dennis. Dennis has been around in the industry for many years. He's been in IT. He's been in law. He's just sent us some incredible news about his entrepreneurial side and coach hub, who's just received some new funding, I believe. Maybe you hear from that from him about that. So Andres, nice to hear from you. Maybe I should give the floor to William, who will be giving us a broad view on cybersecurity and what's going on in the world. William, could you?
Sure. Thank you. That's yeah. Thank you for the introductions. How there's actually just a million possible angles at which you could go for cybersecurity. So it is kind of a challenge to introduce it. It's just vast and amazing. Taken broadly, consider it as cybersecurity being just made up of techniques that help to secure various digital components, networks, data, and computer systems from unauthorized access. Essentially, we need, if you boil it down, you need cybersecurity to help you minimize crime and harm in the virtual world. That's becoming more and more difficult when you realize the actual extent in our lives nowadays that it has, and of the actual extent of what is considered to be a computer system. How could I? Yes, if I'll just be giving you some examples so you have a more precise. It's my idea of cybersecurity. You can, as I said, have it from many other angles. I'm stealing some comparisons from Bruce Schneier. He's a famous cryptographer who also writes books. I recommend them if you're interested in the topic, if you become interested in that topic also. So when you look at some convenience, everyday objects that you use, they're all becoming a computer system. Your computer systems, your smartphone. Mine is plugged in. I can't actually show you. Your smartphone is a computer that makes phone calls. It's not exactly a phone with added capabilities. It's really a computer that makes phone calls. Maybe not all of them now, but a large part of refrigerators are already computers that keep what is inside them cold. Your car is a bigger computer on 4 wheels. When you see the amount of electronics that's in there and how it is linked together, it is crazy. So when you think about also what is powering all these behind the scenes, like power plants for electricity for your house and office, or you think down to the server farms that can keep all of your diverse applications independently running smoothly on your phone, you just start visualizing this whole invisible networked world around you. And this network, like all computer systems by design, is vulnerable to attacks. So yes, there is a huge gap of how serious a situation is between, oh, my computer crashed because of malware and I just lost the Word document I was working on, and oh no, my implanted connected defibrillator has been crashed, and I can end up dead in the next 5 minutes. But it seems far, but the more we connect, the more we are dealing with flaws, let's say. Yes, that's basically the approach, a word of approach I could give you for on cybersecurity, and it is vast.
Thank you, Willem. I think I was up next, and now I regret it a little bit because great intro, and also you preempted me on Schneier, who I also wanted to sort of discuss a little bit his book "Click Here to Kill Everybody," which I also recently read, and so that's basically a lot of that perspective which to bring. So now I have to improvise or just tell the what remains. But so for me, it's I'm a big part of me, a big chunk of me is being a lawyer and an attorney, and also digital forensics guy, I would say, where I founded my first startup, Devidence. Actually, CodeUp is not my startup, just to clarify. It's just I'm just general counsel at CodeUp, but it's still a great pleasure to be part of it. And my perspective on cybersecurity is also based on this, of course. So on the forensics background and on the legal background, and for me, sort of the legal aspects to what Schneier says and what you've said just now, Willem, is that we have more and more important sort of legal rights which become subject to digital access, digital manipulation, right? And it's not only in my view, and already that's something that I'm not sure that's clear enough in my view in Schneier's book, sort of or only it's that's of course debatable. The right to life and health is of course some of the most important rights, but I think also the right to a fair and working democracy is incredibly important. For example, a functioning democracy, and I feel that this is also something that is potentially under attack by today's modernization and IT in all aspects of life, including in some areas voting machines, where I have to be honest that I'm highly critical in many ways unless they're really carefully implemented. And I totally agree with the German Supreme Court, and sorry for lawyering away here, but the German Supreme Constitutional Court decided a couple of years ago that voting machines are not permitted in Germany generally because the security measures were not sufficient to provide an added benefit that was worth the risk. So yes, I wholeheartedly agree. It's more and more important than ever, and I think there are probably other aspects which we're not even aware of about information security, about cybersecurity, where which we might address, which are important to discuss, and I really look forward to getting to the details with all of you. Thank you.
Sabrina.
Yes,
Your
I was
turn,
not
Sabrina.
sure if hello, good afternoon to all of you. It's a great pleasure to share this panel with you, Willem, Dennis, Andres, and of course being moderated by Sergio, to which I really give my thank you to because of our participation. I'm Sabrina Medeiros, doctor in political science, and I've been working with cybersecurity themes or related themes together with an international relations perspective. And I prepared, PowerPoint presentation. I have prepared just to kind of guide my thoughts on the theme. And of course, you may interact with me while I am doing my presentation. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, so everyone can see it. Could you confirm? Yeah. Okay. So again, my thanks for the Berkeley Global Society and all the panelists here. And so my first topic would be, well, yeah, kind of, you know, trying to propose a typology in which my main focus is to defend that cybersecurity is about information security. And if it's about information security, so every sort of policies or, you know, technological assets that may be created to work within or to kind of regulate the scene will work on information security. And with this, I propose that there's some of the types that can be enhanced and where we can work with specialized regulation or specialized discussions, which are the private security theme, cyber violence, institutional security, infrastructure security, supply chain security, and intelligence and interagency schemes. So why my proposal is based on those 6 elements of the information security scene, because we have here the CITEM dimension, which may be the cyber violence and cyber bullying or cyber harassment, the private security elements which are embedded in the data, in the personal data, all inside the net, and also, but also we have the state, you know, regulation schemes which are fully connected to cybersecurity and information security through the infrastructure security element, through the supply chain security, and through the intelligence and institutional security. Well, we've been working especially on intelligence and interagency schemes. So we've been working with the main objective connected to work to enhance cooperation, interagency cooperation, and kind of, you know, making it possible the comprehension that working within agencies and institutions is even more hard, is even harder than work to the regulation inside or in benefit of the regulation inside institutional frameworks. So if we have the state problems, if we have the corporate and entrepreneurship problems, if we have the system problem, we also have to work within those, you know, words. And this is the hardest, you know, challenge I pose here to your discussion. So with this, I would like to organize a discussion in our, you know, studies in 4 different topics. So first topic is about the multi-stakeholderism, which is the main European Union policy and the main UN policy, which is obviously connected to how we can regulate and how we can commit peoples and institutions to a moral framework in dealing with cyber dimension. But as opposed to multi-stakeholderism, or we have also the sovereignty model, which is being discussed through the way that states are willing to control themselves and the assets they have in a sovereignty model or way of thinking. Second, the binding and non-binding legal documents. So we have legal documents, we have commitments, we have compliance to international regimes and to international general regulations, but still We have also the non-binding ones. How can we assure compliance and assure that people and institutions are on the same page? And how this, movement can guarantee, not only guarantee, but some way inspire governments and people in this regulation scene, or regulatory, I would say, scene. Third, the good practices. The good practices both derive from the top, in which there are the strategic political frameworks, and the down, what I call down initiatives, which are the bottom-up initiatives that may arise as good ways to deal with insecurity. And fourth, the commitment to work within different levels of state and its institutions. So with this, we have the European Union recent, July 2020 Budapest Convention, and trying to figure out how about the evidence of crime, how we can work on the evidences of crime, how we can measure, how we can register, how we can go through, materializing cybersecurity, the cybersecurity domain within or in between actors and state actors. Second, the additional protocol of the convention, or the convention on cybercrime. Third, the Paris call, which is part of the main principles that are under the Paris movement, which is the safety of people, internet integrity, electoral processes, intellectual property, harm non-proliferation, supply chain life cycle, cyber hygiene, digital security, active defense, international norms. So they are all part of the Paris Peace Forum and the Internet Governance Forum. And last, the ITU Global Cybersecurity Agenda from 2007, but since 2007, we've been, we can see kind of, triple of people accessing internet, at least in the global south. So how we can deal with those 5 pillars and then the 9 pillars of the Paris call with this, enhanced network dimension. So let's go through some general topics. So in Brazil, we have some, progresses. General Data Protection Act, the last, the Brazilian Civil Rights Framework for the Internet law, the Information Security National Policy, and various previous legislations such as Consumer Code, Civil Law, Wiretap, 1996 law. So it's a full framework of legislations which are being arisen since the 90s, but especially the e-cyber, which is slightly more comprehensive approach to cybersecurity, one that transcends a focus on military capabilities. So in Brazil, the military capabilities focus was the one which initialized the discussion, but right now we have a more broader comprehension of the cybersecurity, challenge and theme. And what is critical for me, the cyber interoperability at one side, at the other side, the governance, risk, and compliance status. So how can we enhance governance, risk, and compliance? And what are our understandings of this? So if we see here, military cyber operations are, mostly, the more expressive in South America, at the first graphic shows. So in terms of military cyber capabilities, we seem to be in the right pace, but at the same time, we are in the middle in the next graphic where Brazil is, as compared to other actors in South America. So it's about categories, it's about capacities, it's about indicators. So how can we not only be trustful, but also can we add to the enhancement of cybersecurity domain in the international system? So strengthening synergies in benefit of interagency relations is the way we think we can add to the scene. So in this aspect, we're dealing with multi-agent exercises, military and civilian collaboration, public-private or private-public interface schemes development, data managerial forums, research and training, social responsibility, and foreign relations robustness of the in-place technical bodies. We have defended, me and Daniele Aires, we have defended in the policy papers published recently from Conrad Adenauer Stiftung Forte de Copacabana seminar about digital geopolitics and information security, that there are four main capacities in which states could develop themselves and should strengthen synergies in benefit of interagency relations. So one is international regimes. So compliance with international regimes, contribution to pay to international regimes, effectiveness is one of the ways to enhance it. Defense systems, so to work with defense capabilities, civil society enhancements. So I would say, what about civil society? Civil society participation, organization, civilian forums, civilian associations, and so on, participating in public policy development, and also interoperability. And I'm calling interoperability not only the capabilities, in between armed forces, but also in between different agencies, state agencies. Last, Joint Cyber Defense Command. So in terms of military capability, what we have developed, 2017 Joint Command establishment with offshore generals from the armed forces integrated to the Brazilian Army structure. I'm not sure if it's the right way to do it, to integrate the cyber defense capabilities only in the Brazilian Army structure. And second, cyber threat exercises and interoperability exercise, national solutions to threat. I'm not sure if the national solutions, are, comprehensive or not comprehensively to add to the international threat, which are threats which are posed. And in the multi-national plan for 2021, 2022, there are no cybersecurity investment plans. So no money at all dedicated to cybersecurity. So what are the challenges? How it's going to do, how we're going to face with border security migration crisis. We are, experiencing the most expressive migration crisis in the north of the country. Federal federative institutions, we have many problems and divisions and political divisions in terms of the structure inside the national and inside the federative countries, and as opposed one to the other. International threats in various categories such as trafficking, smuggling, private-public initiatives. How can we add to governments? At the same time, they cannot operate alone because they need the private, corporate solutions to add to the solutions they will pose for the future. So how can we do it in a trustful way? As we see this week, the American company affected by the espionage and the hacking, and at least having problems like private data and energy security and many others, and international stakeholders and mixed interferences, what we call mixed interferences, because private-public relations are necessary, and one cannot afford to have a complete, solution with basically, complete sovereignty. How can we deal with trust in the system? And cyber arms race and or the militarization of the cyberspace. So how can we deal with the militarization of the cyberspace if we are always dealing with national security problems? So thank you very much again for the opportunity, and look forward to discuss those points with you.
Sabrina, thank you for your presentation. That was a very complete one. Andres, you saw that Sabrina gave us a very large view on different trends and also approaches to cybersecurity. You've been in this debate on multi-stakeholderism versus sovereignty approaches for so many years. And we have all, Sabrina covered some of the trends in Brazil as well. What is your vision, Andres? What is going on in Latin America? Where are countries going to? What is our direction?
I was also moved. Thank you, Sergio. I was also moved by this last question about how to avoid the militarization of the cooperation or the militarization of the approach to the problem, to the cybersecurity problem. So we are having different challenges. Others are related to how do we deal with the current internet or the internet as we know it. And some key principles, for example, encryption. How do we deal with some players, platforms or private messengers that are foreign companies outside of the region? Their servers are outside of the region, and how do we deal with communications and cooperation with cybercrime and some other discussions? And there is a discussion that I believe has been dominant and was related to the dual or the possible tension between sovereign approaches or persecutions to crime, to criminals, and to prosecutors' work or judges or legal work, criminal processes, and the others are more related to principle, to internet principles, to freedom of expression, or other rights or principles regarding to the internet. And I don't see very much of a tension, or I don't see the need for that tension. For example, not only with encryption, but also because encryption has been much more in the agenda of the private companies that don't want them to be obligated or to break their own structure of communications. For example, WhatsApp is very much against trying to lead the discussion against the breaking the encryption. But also we have another trend, like for example, what is called open source intelligence initiative from the governments, trying to get to scrap the public speech in Twitter, in Facebook, and trying to get intelligence information from there to enhance their ability to persecute, to prevent cybercrime, and to enhance their ability to fight against this type of new or not so new crimes. And in that part, there's also a vision on digital rights activists that are trying to protect not only encryption, but trying to discuss against this open source intelligent trends. And then we have a lot of buzz, a lot of hype now in the region regarding criminalization of cybersecurity or white hat hackers activities or cybersecurity alerts that are done by members of the community that then they end in criminal processes. We have in Ecuador the case of an activist called Olavini. We have in Argentina the case of an activist called Javier Smaldone. They have been, and several activists in Argentina have been prosecuted and have been part of criminal processes just because they alerted of a problem or a vulnerability in a critical database. And so we have less cooperation in the center of responses for vulnerabilities, or maybe we have less compliance. We have national strategies on cybersecurity that are not able to make or to make other agencies of the same government to comply with the best practices. And all the cooperation Sabrina was covering so brightly that I don't want to get into that. I just refer to her description. She was very academic on her approach and her description of the problem. We have all that is not yet in place, and it's not very effective, and we have a lot of points that we still have to cover. And on the other hand, we have bad ideas that may appear as shortcuts to achieve for example, to avoid a digital cybercrime, or to protect databases with open source intelligence, with criminalization of some activists, or with trying to break key principles of digital communications like encryption. So I believe these bad ideas could be shortcuts, could be effective, even if we have we don't have regional laws in Latin America. We just have our national sovereign countries that they can regulate, and some other regional processes that are weaker, much weaker than the European Union. But we can have a new landscape breaking encryption, and I seriously doubt that if we do that, I don't know which will be the results, but for sure, I don't expect very much of great results. So now we are having a much better approach to deal with cybercrime, or for example, if we have a specific regulation for cryptocurrencies, that we are trying to deal with that in several countries. I don't see very much of ability or capacity to prevent, but on the other hand, we're breaking things that are still working, that may help the digital ecosystem. So I would go. I repeat very much the same in my advices to come to the international organizations or countries. Like, try to comply with your strategies. Try to increase your cooperation in-house. To try to get more tools in order to achieve cybersecurity goals, prevention goals in not only in the public sector, but in protecting these critical databases, in enhancing the center of responses for incidents in the countries or in the region, and enhancing the community work, trying to engage these white hat hackers that are part of the activists in the communities, and less the repressive approach. I don't see the repressive approach to be at least very effective. For example, I'm working in a project with Uruguay and Paraguay. It will be public soon. Those countries are very much concerned about not having, neither of them, cybercrime act. So they are comparing themselves to Brazil and Argentina, that we do have for several years now. And I was trying to make them aware to, okay, it's good, maybe you can cover that track. It will be good for you to do that, but let's see that which are the statistics or which are the results for Argentina and Brazil. There haven't been great results for these two countries in protecting their critical databases, because this repressive approach has limited abilities to be successful. And the other, the preventive one, I believe much more than the policies should be oriented in that other side. I hope it has been. Thanks.
Thank you, Andres. And this is, you just touched one of the difference between our in our approaches in Latin America and Europe. We have this the whole regulatory scenario in Europe that does provide frameworks for that countries, more than one country, necessarily need to follow. And we have seen, Dennis, recently some proposals in the EU about new proposals on encryption. Could you bring us, what is the general idea? Do you have any take on that matter?
Yes, thank you very much. I also see it quite critically. I'm not, well, actually not sure about everybody here. I think it's always, I understand that there's a need, well, different needs to be balanced, right? We need to be able to find out about crimes, and also, and especially for cybersecurity, for digital crimes, where encryption can be an important means. But also, I believe we have seen. I don't believe, to be honest, that when you balance those needs against the needs for privacy of many, and you consider that criminals will likely not restrict themselves to legal encryption technology, but the technology, if available to everyday normal people, is gonna be, the everyday technology is gonna be more affected than those special criminal masterminds, which might be difficult to catch in other ways. And also, so far, we've seen that even with there were several cases even behind Tor, the darknet, where there have been quite successful investigations, and that's with some of the best anonymization and encryption technologies behind some of the actors that we know of. So the question, I think, is really to find a good balance. And personally, my personal view is that generally I don't believe that breaking up encryption is a good way to move forward. And in general, I think it's not a good balance. So I see the EU law as I have read about it so far, and I haven't gone into much detail because of a lot going on. I see it critically, and I would have to look into with it more detail. And I love to hear everybody else's views on this topic, though. I think it's quite exciting. I think it's one of those evergreen topics. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what everybody else think about it. Thank you.
Willem, would you like to jump in and talk a little more about these trends in Europe and what is going on in the cyber realm?
Sure. Of course. So yes, even wider than Europe, I'll probably be taking a step back and also jump on and reflect on what Sabrina and Andres have been telling us with regards to this relationship with of military, the government, and how do you put it all together. So yeah, I'm just taking a step back and highlighting this very, what you could call, basic trend of power. The hyper connectivity that we are experiencing today, thanks to the internet, has, if you really take it broadly, has allowed cybersecurity to reshuffle the power cards between certain countries in the world. It matters less how many planes, frigates, tanks, ballistic missiles, or nuclear warheads you have now, but it is essential that you make sure that you have the best possible cybersecurity people and the skills. There's a huge shortage of skills of cybersecurity. It's kind of a pain if I can't pronounce that word right. Cybersecurity skills in the world. The last numbers I remember was a shortage that was already of 1 million people back in 2014, and projected to be of 3.5 million people missing in this area of work in 2021. So shortage of skills, that's already one issue globally. Back to the relationship of states, you have this global, the keyword here I think is mistrust between between the actors on the main stage, and you have secondary stages also. The main stage, that would be China, Russia, United States on top of the list. For example, from recent mediatized cases and global concerns that were expressed. And you might find overall this this mistrust that is relayed and that you see in the example of, I'm taking specific examples here, Russian antivirus company Kaspersky, and the global question for everyone outside of Russia: can its products be trusted? And you can do the same for just many other countries without, I mean, affiliating the private company, because it might be a private company, to directly to the government in which it is with which it is evolving. Huawei in China, for example, and ZTE for hardware, are making just a huge debate. You've probably seen that in the papers over the last 2 years, probably, over specifically the 5G infrastructure. And there again, the question: can they be trusted? Same for huge American companies providing cloud services, where you might be hosting sensitive files, not always by choice, such as, let's name one, Amazon Web Services. Can their products be trusted by the rest of the world? And you see this very protectionist view from Europe with GDPR and everything. It's just one counter way of looking at it. It's mistrust on the one hand, and you also have trust building on the other. So it's not a pessimistic view. I have to mention here the surprising example of a place like Estonia, in which I had the pleasure to live for some time, which managed to build itself as one of the most digitally advanced nations in the world, following the fall of the Soviet Union. And it's today not feared or felt as a threat in the way it operates, but rather consulted in terms of cybersecurity and other digital solutions to bring together the government and the people, and a bit more transparency, the army, what is happening in there. Yes, by taking this step back, I am doing this also not to put specific countries in the spotlight, just to underline that everyone does cybersecurity, offensive and defensive. What really differs is the allocation of available resources and the ever-changing reflection of internal and foreign policy. It's not a fair comparison to do this, probably, but I kind of see it like this, maybe reading too many novels. It's kind of globalized the digital Cold War espionage, except that you have the right also to discreetly look around, and even at your allies. It's got nothing to do with what was traditionally meant as conflict. To go back and input a word on policy, all of this, I can really bring this back down to the notion of defense. If everyone is trying to just be offensive at each other, you just create flaws everywhere. It's not realistically doable, I would say. But if everyone was working towards only defensive cybersecurity, we would be securing, let's say, this ecosystem. But let's be realistic again. This is not happening anytime soon.
Thank you, Willem. Sabrina, we just talked again about the broader vision and also some specific cases that we have, risks involved in cyber, but also some very concrete topics, some very concrete cases. For example, Willem just cited the 5G issue on who should in the trust thing, and who should we trust and our countries should trust. Brazil, for example, like many other countries, are making up their minds about Huawei and Chinese manufacturers, and we have all this legacy of Chinese infrastructure in the country that has a lot to do. It's a very hard choice to make because we do not have the deep pockets that some other countries do have for bridging digital divide. We do need to spend a lot of money, a lot of effort into bridging this gap and launching more infrastructure. So it's not an easy choice on China in or China out. Maybe something will change with this the new presidency in the US. This is a very interesting topic. If you want to bring some advice in your international relations knowledge. And I'd also want to hear from you. What is your vision on like key topics for cybersecurity? The Berkeley Global Society is also a group of people that that are involved in research, but also in policy and concrete matters. And you're a researcher. What is your take? What is to come in 2021?
Thank you, Sergio, for the questions. I mean, I would propose those future observations and topics to researching in two different dimensions. I mean, one is how we can add to policy building, and once inside policy building, also how can we work on governance, risk, and compliance, which is about a broad strategy to managing institutional risk, a broad strategy to managing institutional governance, dealing with also institutional risk and compliance in terms of regulation. So what type of regulation can better attend institutional frameworks to govern those relations which are embedded and we cannot avoid? And how we can going further, how can we deal with risk and compliance? So are states and actors and agencies and agents, are they prepared to comply, and how can we reinforce compliance without having such instruments that are already known from the national perspective of legislation and from the national view of punishment, in terms of the whole system? So this is one dimension. The other dimension is about the information technology assets, which are how can policies and frameworks and structures interface information technology developments. So because we've been dealing with technology, innovation, 5G, and all those aspects that are directly affected by, many strategies under the European Union, outside of the European Union, inside the international system, but we are not thinking about how those innovations can add to state security. So we're just talking about how can performance in terms of the technological assets it offers add to development, to the human being, but we're not thinking about how can it add to state security. And it's not about, creating softwares or, very efficient softwares. It's not about, it's making it reliable. It's making it feasible. How can we work on the feasibility of the internet, of the various innovative initiatives on information technology, and how they can really add to the discussion on what the states need, what those regimes need. So it's not only about creating a new assets or creating new ways to do things, but how those new things, are completely interfered, and how they interfere in the political dimension. So we were not thinking about electoral processes. We're not thinking about the way people should be better represented by their politicians. We were not thinking about the way legislation should move. So how can we add to the Congresses or to the parliamentary boundaries those discussions? What are the sorts of old representative schemes that are interfered by the IT dimension of the cybersecurity dilemmas? So how can the next, ways to be represented and to talk to community, to work within or inside the society representation schemes which are in the internet? So what about the moral and ethical issues? So there's the second main dimension, which I would say it's the ethical and moral dimension of the IT progresses and development. So let's talk about hackers, and let's talk about crime. So we are embedded, we are completely, fulfilled by many ways to be connected to crime. So we have the port security, we have the maritime security, we have drugs and human trafficking, through the borders and through the seas. Seas do not have borders, physical borders to be controlled. So we are connected to many of those dimensions. If we are inside the internet, if we use, the seas as our commercial, supply chain, most valued way to do it. So we are completely embedded in the situation and inside the crime scene. They're being more organized. So those attacks from the last week are completely inside a very coordinated and organized way to do it. It's not anymore about individuals or anymore about, small initiatives that are connected to a very temporarily crime scene. But we are talking about state, surveillance, which is completely connected to state support of those crime initiatives. So we still have, to discuss the human, the human dimension of those, the moral and the ethical dimension of those achievements, the good achievements and the bad and the worst achievements. So U.S. Department of Defense, State, Treasury, Homeland Security, Commerce, all affected. So we should, think about how institutions should review their own organization schemes, how we can trust in third parties, organizations that are working to monitor our security. So, so how can we monitor? So we can help those developments, still doing studies on how we should better attend with new political frameworks, but also how can we add the moral and ethical principles to IT? So I think both are two important dimensions still to go further, to be deeper, to be deeper analyzed. And I give it extremely sensitivity because it's about the taxpayers' information, it's about people's behaviors on their various human dimensions. So it's about people, and it's about how states can protect people. So with this, I would end up with this consideration. We should work, at the same time, and we should not forget about the moral and ethical dimensions, which are, in another pace, than IT progresses are.
Thank you, guys. Sabrina, thank you. Dennis, Willem, Andres, you're all lawyers. You've been doing IT law for many years in different aspects, but you're sort of at least legal experts. Willem, do not run away from us. But you're in the legal field as well. But Dennis, you're the general counsel for a company. It is you handle a lot of sensitive data. I read the privacy page for Coach Hub weeks ago, and by the way, I love the page. I'm sort of taking that as an example to my clients of a very clear privacy policy. This is I'm being 100% honest. I saw that and I found it very creative, very clear. Congratulations! I'm sure there's your as well. And part of the role of BGS is connecting this people and ideas, and also talking about what are the business opportunities for lawyers here. I wanted to hear from you as the general counsel, as a lawyer, where the business opportunities reside and the responsibilities of lawyers reside in the cybersecurity realm, not only in policy, but specifically in legal terms itself.
Yes, I think there is actually a big future ahead, because as we discussed at the very beginning, especially Willem and I focused, it spreads everywhere, right? It becomes more and more important, more and more pervasive into different areas, and so cybersecurity legal aspects, I think. There still, and Sabrina, you guys are really the experts in detail, but there is a lot of alignment needed internationally, of course, and I totally agree with you guys there too. We want, of course, a cyber peace as well on an international level, and we need alignment there, I think these are huge fields in the future because as everything grows more and more digital, the security aspects of the digitalization become more important, and so the legal aspects also become more important. And in my experience, it can be incredibly difficult to find people, especially who know about both sides, who are experts in both fields, and who can combine both to analyze the legal aspects, to analyze the information security aspects, and combine everything into sensible results. And sometimes in practice with courts, I find it can also be difficult to really get through those backgrounds. And I think if we would have more IT aspects in general, or IT experts in the legal field in general, but also specifically information security, cybersecurity experts in the legal field. This is a great development, and this is very important to make sure we can shape those times and make sure those times are peaceful, because after all, in my view, that's the very core of what the law is, right? We try to make sure, instead of having an arbitrary society where everybody acts upon their own instincts, we try to have something like an agreement to create peace, to create structures, to create institutions that preserve peace, that preserve and create justice. And so yes, I think this is going to be more and more important. And I hope we can contribute a little bit in this framework to those developments. And I'm already super happy to have better gotten to know some of these incredible experts in different fields, of these very rare experts as well, as I said, and so specialized. I hadn't been sure if somebody had asked me, can you find 5 different experts on legal and cybersecurity aspects around the world? I would have said, I'm not sure. And so it's a great pleasure for me to be here, and I think it's a great foundation for an incredibly important topic.
Andres.
Sorry, now I didn't. It's a really interesting question. It gets for another whole debate, and I was agreeing with the last part of it, when most of what Dennis said, but the last part. I don't know if there's yet, at least in the region, in Latin American region, for sure, it's very hard to find a specifically dedicated field for cybersecurity lawyers. There are IT lawyers that are much more related to cybercrime. That could be one field. Privacy could be another of the fields that are much more mature. For example, you, Sergio, are very, very well positioned in that field, for example. But you have been, well, we have been following each other for the last 10, 15 years, and you know there are several different profiles or topics that are being covered for the same type of professionals. And let's say I'm having consultancy projects much more than legal, the counsel work or traditional counsel work. And my consultancy projects are related to cybersecurity or cybercrime. Could be 30–40% of my portfolio, but also privacy work, and also some I don't know how to categorize that part, but innovative regulation in digital aspects, and I've been consulting on that much more than, for example, the same type of cybersecurity cases, or same type of legal or regulatory approach for example, a client or for a study for an international organization. So I believe this is not casual. I believe there's yet a lot of maturation to be achieved by the ecosystem, by the needs of regulators, but the private sector actors they don't, I find, very much the need of, or at least they don't have the budget to invest in those areas. But this is becoming more and more an issue. So I believe this will increase. This market will increase in the next 5 years a lot in our region. There is a lot to be done, even in Argentina, in Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, to build the regulations, to advise the government, advise international organizations that are the ones that are fostering these processes to happen. Also, private companies. So I believe this field could be a good opportunity for young lawyers. Sometimes I feel that I'm 37 years old. I have been around these issues even before graduating, 22 years old, so the last 15 years. I believe the issue is getting shape mostly now in our region. Maybe in other regions could be the maturity point could be earlier, but so for example in Estonia. So now I believe there's much more field for other professionals to be active in this cybersecurity or IT law. So for me, my experience has had to be done in several fields at the same time, and very global or international discussions in a very initial point of discussions, international treaties to set the ground for a very simple regulation, or all those issues that were like the very beginning on some discussions. For example, Uruguay and Paraguay are trying to understand if they need to ratify or not the Budapest Agreement, for example. It's 20 years old, and now some countries in our region, they don't have even the legal framework to deal with cybercrime, for example. So this will be the future for our region for the next 5 years. I think so.
William, you are the security officer. Who is the effective counsel that actually works with you? How does what does he look like? What sort of advice are you looking for in your everyday job?
Sorry, I was muted. Right, if the advice, I mean, I take it to heart to say fairly that that we suggested to help wrap up the session of cybersecurity with such a question about advice. It's because we're opening the topic at Berkeley Global Society. I would say, and I hope many of you haven't heard, you know, I hope that if you're cybersecurity savvy enough that you know already this, I'll be the first person to be glad, really. But I really find in many organizations that there is really little awareness, or not enough simply awareness about cybersecurity. So simply said, I'll give you just a few tips. First, if you have, we all need, if you're lucky to be working in a place where you receive this kind of training, that's good. If not, I really suggest that you get interested in it, and that you really stick to those to this advice and principles, because you'll all benefit from it, really. What really you call cyber hygiene. What we all lack, I believe, first is some education in recognizing phishing better, phishing emails. I mean, if you don't feel confident with that, and you don't know exactly when you should be tipped off by something odd, usually when you're asked to do something unusual, and in a complementary way when you're being put under pressure to do this. Recognizing those situations is really just capital. As a rule of thumb, let's say, if you happen to see something, just say something and report that, if you have one, to your phishing department. My bad, guys, to your IT department or IT security department, if you even have those guys that can help you. There's too many pieces of advice to give. I'll just stick to the really major ones. Keep your devices updated. This is something really critical. It's a bit like leaving, if you don't do it, a bit like leaving your car unlocked in a parking lot. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody will try to open the door and try to eventually get in it, and then eventually try to jumpstart it with wires. But it does open a window of opportunity. As Sabrina was saying earlier, no software is expected to be perfect, and it evolves to meet new users. It gets amended, and you'll certainly find a flaw where it is. So when you have patches, apply them. 2 more, probably. Access to digital systems nowadays, broadly speaking, is still done thanks to passwords. We might be moving in the next few years through different solutions for authenticating users, hopefully. But right now, it's still the very old basic username and password. You've heard this, I hope, a thousand times. Make your passwords just really strong and very different from one another. I mean, not the same. By that, I mean that you don't have them the same across different accounts and services that you use. And since this is not something that, as humans, we are capable, to do, or that we even enjoy, just remembering so much information, I would suggest to get some help with this and try and start using a password management tool. You might hate it in the beginning, or not completely understand it. But over time, you will love how much time, worry, and headspace it saves you. Last, I won't extend too much on the subject. Last and not least, just generally be conscious of your privacy and security settings within your digital environment. What you might be sharing, what you might be oversharing. Because if you're making, on the one hand, some real efforts to have strong and diverse passwords, and on the other hand, you just end up posting on social media on an account that is not private, that's, you might be sharing, I don't know, a picture with the name of your beautiful dog. Let's agree that we call him Woofy. And then as a person with dubious intentions, if I see this through an account, I might just try to enter Woofy as the answer to your secret question when I try to recover your email account, which will give me access to everything else. So 4 tips that I give you here: keep your devices updated, recognize phishing better, passwords diverse and strong, and be generally conscious of the trail that you leave in the digital environment, in your digital environment, because it doesn't go away simply.
Yeah. I just want to thank all. Compromised right now is another appointment, and Dennis just is also leaving us. Sabrina, if you want to give us your final words, thank you, and thank you, Andres, for your time.
Okay, thank you all. Just wrapping up, last point that I think we should all think is about education. So I'm a mother, and I'm a mother of an adolescent, and I really feel that we are very undercovered in terms of the educational policies as to enhance the security dimension in those mindsets. So how can we build in benefit for this next generation, which are heavy users of electronic devices? And so also I would add my worries on how governments and how people that are working with the scene can really add to the building of a mindset of security mindset in the next generation. So because they are going to deal with privacy, with work, with their work in a different dimension that we do. So thank you again for all your insightful thoughts, and I'm sure I'll be back to an excellent opportunity with all those elements inside our research objectives.